In Midlothian, Scotland, the Collegiate Chapel of St. Matthew was built in the mid-15th century. It was built on a small hill above Roslin Glen. It would later be renamed to Roslin Chapel, being the third location of worship for the Sinclair family, who built and occupied Roslin Castle. The bottom floor, or crypt, is actually a much older build, believed to be that of an earlier, unknown castle. Roslin Castle was across and down the hillside. It was originally built in the late 14th century, mostly destroyed in 1544, only to be built back better and larger. Now in 1128, the Knights Templar had already established themselves at Ballintradoc, now Temple Midlothian. It's unknown if they had anything to do with the earlier castle, now the lower floor of the chapel. There are also burial vaults that lie underneath the chapel, which are separate of the lower crypt. That vault has been sealed shut and its entrance no longer known. Could it too be hiding secrets? The chapel was founded by William Sinclair of the Scoto-Norman Sinclair family. The chapel was not built by the Knights Templar. However, the Sinclair family had deep ties with the Scottish Freemasons. This is the rear of the church with its cemetery. The chapel was abandoned in 1592, fell into decay. It was not restored until 1862, where it now fell to the jurisdiction of the Scottish Episcopal Church. The interior carvings were said to have taken 40 years to complete. You quickly notice there's more than meets the eye in what is being documented within the stonework of the chapel. Some were strategically added later. The Masonic imagery was most likely added in the 1860s by David Bryce, a known Freemason, who undertook the restoration work on the areas of the church, including many of the carvings. As you pass the cemetery, there's this pathway that leads down the hillside. Few people other than the locals venture down. The pathway leads down toward Roslin Castle. It's quite the descent to where I'm taking you. Those are the outer walls of Roslin Castle and the bridge to get across. The bridge took the place of an original drawbridge. From here, we really travel downward. Some of the walls seen go back to medieval times. Very interesting is that retaining walls and other stonework can be found well below the castle. I'd never heard of this. I found out by hiking in the area. It looks like there were even older walls that now lay in ruin near the river. But this is something I wanted to point it out. There are old entrances to tunnels that lead up to the castle. It looked to no longer be usable. There appears to be different build periods, additions using different cut stone. I also noticed another section of the wall that appeared to have had a tunnel or at least a walkway leading into the hillside. The retaining walls had given out a long time ago and the hillside has collapsed on top of that entrance. Now I want to jump to a location that's a little over 3.5 miles north of Roslin Chapel. As we know, the inside of Roslin Chapel is riddled with Masonic carvings and designs. Well, so are the underground carved out passages at Gilmerton Cove. The question is, when were they added? Who created Gilmerton Cove? This cottage in a common suburb on the outskirts of Edinburgh conceals a genuine mystery below it. Now, Gilmerton was originally its own village that originated in the medieval period to house miners, limestone quarry workers, and their families. A little cottage above is the entrance to Gilmerton Cove, a subterranean network of passageways and chambers carved out of the sandstone bedrock on which the village of Gilmerton was built upon. The mystery comes about because no one knows when this man-made complex was created or by whom, and what it was used for. It was originally thought to have been created between 1719 to 1724, but the historian who supposedly did all the excavation didn't add up. It's now believed to have been excavated in the late 1500s or even earlier. There were several blocked tunnels leading in several directions. One of those led toward Roslin Chapel. The passageway stops just over half a mile, never completed. Other tunnels appear to head north toward Craigmillar Castle. Was this a depot, meeting location, storage facility, or a combination of sorts? These steps were uncovered during an archaeological search between the year 2000 and 2002. As you can see, when it rains heavily, the entire cove becomes flooded. Some spots had over 24 inches of water while I was underground. Some have stated that this is the mark of the Knights Templar, the original creators of the cove. I say there's little to back that assumption up, but tools used to create the cove were known to have been in use during the 14th century. The Templars were here in this exact area between the 1100s and the 1300s. I spent some time examining this carving, and it could mean all types of things, or nothing at all. It seems to be carved into a seat up along a back wall, away from other carved locations, those bearing definite Masonic symbols. Here's more chambers and passageways. These carvings appear to have been in a meeting area. There are symbols all over this tabletop. A carved table with basin and stone carved benches. This looks to have been where meetings or rituals took place. It's set up at least in this manner. More carved symbols in the carved out table. This is a tunnel carved out and leading toward Roslin Chapel. Or was it Roslin Castle, where other passageways were known to exist? Nothing can be proven with the Knights Templar being involved with either location, but this is what I posit. The lower crypt of Roslin Chapel is old, very old, most likely a forgotten about ancient castle. Gilmerton Cove appears to be strategically placed between multiple sites of importance, some lost to history. Was this underground passage system and cove for a secret society, or at least created for covert travel and covert meetings? Was something being hidden and guarded underground? This is as far as the passageway going south went before abruptly ending. It led me to believe that there is a passageway system below ground where some group, maybe the Templars, congregated back in the 12th to 14th century. Was something taking place in the past that only a few individuals were given knowledge about to pass on to future generations? It's subjective on my part, pure speculation, sure I know. But I'm making it because we have the tools, the technology now to investigate the ground and see what else we're missing in the area. Only recently has local government learned that the underground cove extends under and across the local public street. Imagine missing an extension of what you already know is there. What are we missing that's not connected? Important sites continue to have newer builds attached or placed on top of old structures. This is fact at many ancient sites around the world. Roslin Chapel is no different. The Knights Templar and Masonic Order seem to show up at many of these sites. Just look at Skinwalker Ranch, where the Masonic compass and square are carved into Skinwalker Ridge. These groups and societies are at these locations for a reason. They knew something we don't. I have a feeling that there are ancient sites still waiting to be found underground near present-day Edinburgh, Scotland. I believe this underground system was larger than we currently know it to be and led to very important sites. What for is still a mystery. If you get the opportunity to visit Scotland, I highly recommend these two locations. I do believe they're tied to one another. Who knows, maybe I'll bump into you there. Thanks for taking the time out to watch this presentation. please subscribe to my YouTube channel to be alerted of new videos. Until next time, take care.